Ever get that feeling like everything's kind of teetering on the edge? Like the rug could be pulled out from under us at any moment.
Mm.
Well, imagine a whole civilization. I'm talking towering pyramids, cities bustling with life, and then poof, gone,
Just like that.
vanished,
Yep.
swallowed by the jungle. That's the Maya collapse. A historical mystery, sure, but also a pretty stark warning from the past.
And listeners have been asking for a deep dive into this one.
Oh, yeah, they have, and we've scored an incredible guest for this. We have an interview with Paul Cooper, the voice behind the Fall of Civilizations podcast.
Oh, wow.
I mean, the guy literally wrote the book on the subject.
So no better person to unpack this whole thing.
Exactly. So to kick things off, let's set the scene a bit.
Yeah.
Picture the Yucatan Peninsula. Dense rainforest, a challenging environment. You've got porous limestone bedrock and a climate that swings between these drenching rains and bone-dry desert conditions.
Yeah, talk about a tough place to build a civilization.
Right. And yet, the Maya did it. They didn't build a massive empire, though.
No, they were more like this network of city-states.
Constantly vying for power, jockeying for position.
Kind of like ancient Greece.
But in the middle of the rainforest.
Exactly. So you've got rivalries, alliances, wars.
The whole 9 yards of drama.
Yeah, and we're going to spotlight two of the biggest players here.
Okay, lay it on me.
We've got Tikal. They got a huge boost from the powerful Teotihuacan civilization. And then there was their rival, Calakmul.
So these weren't just like, primitive villages, right?
Absolutely not. The Maya, they were sophisticated engineers, incredible craftspeople. Forget metal tools, they used obsidian.
Obsidian.
Yeah, it's volcanic glass, sharper than a surgeon's scalpel.
Wow.
They used it for this incredibly intricate carving and building.
So they were really ahead of their time in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah. And they even had a complex writing system, which is pretty rare for ancient America, and we've been able to decipher a lot of it.
It's amazing. It's like cracking a code to get these glimpses into their lives, their beliefs, the power struggles.
And we're not just stuck with ancient texts either. We've got cutting-edge technology now. Things like LiDAR, which is basically like having X-ray vision.
Hold on, explain that one.
So LiDAR lets us peer through this dense jungle canopy and see what's hidden underneath. It's revealed this vast network of settlements and infrastructure, so we're getting a much clearer picture of just how extensive and interconnected Maya civilization really was.
So we've got this vibrant civilization flourishing for centuries in a really challenging environment, and then somewhere between 800 and 950 AD,
Yeah, it all just falls apart.
the bottom drops out.
Yeah.
Monument construction just stops. And these magnificent cities, they're deserted.
But this wasn't like some sudden apocalypse. It was more like a slow burn.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly, a cascade of failures, one triggering the next. Paul Cooper calls this cascading collapse.
Okay, I'm getting a House of Cards image in my head now.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Pull out one card and the whole structure, it becomes unstable.
And it seems like one of the major triggers here was a mega drought,
Around 760 AD.
the worst in 7,000 years.
This wasn't just a dry spell, We're talking about a drought that left its mark in the geological record.
So how do we know that?
Well, there are these layers of clay that formed impenetrable because of the lack of water. Even the types of pollen found in the soil. It's like a fingerprint of how severe and long-lasting this drought was.
So imagine the pressure this put on the Maya. Deforestation, which they needed for agriculture, probably made the drought even worse.
Yeah, disrupting rainfall patterns and creating this more arid environment. It's a textbook example of how human actions can have unintended consequences, even when you're just trying to survive.
And here's where things get even more disturbing. It seems like water pollution may have been a big factor too.
Oh, yeah.
Analysis of Tikal's reservoirs show high levels of mercury
Probably from the Cinnabar paint they used.
and poisonous blue-green algae. So the very things that made their cities beautiful.
Might have poisoned them.
Weakening leadership at a time when they were already dealing with all this environmental stress.
Mm-hmm.
And then the algae blooms. They would have just strained their water resources even further.
Talk about adding insult to injury.
So we've got a perfect storm brewing here. You've got drought, deforestation, now poisoned water supplies. It's no wonder that social order started to break down.
As resources dwindled and the environment deteriorated those tensions, they must have just gone through the roof.
Yeah, and imagine being a Maya ruler at that time. You're trying to keep things together in the face of all these mounting crises.
It's a nightmare scenario.
And remember, this wasn't a unified empire. It was all these competing city-states.
Oh, right.
So you can bet that when the going got tough, those old rivalries, those power struggles, they probably flared up again.
Absolutely. We're talking classic collapse patterns here as the center weakens, the periphery breaks away.
And violence fills the void.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that their weapons, they were relatively simple.
So not a lot of advanced weaponry.
And that might have made the Maya elite even more vulnerable.
You'd think a strong military would help them hold on to power.
Well, it's kind of a paradox, but in this case, the limited advantage in weaponry, it might have made the rulers more susceptible to, a desperate and angry populace.
Because ultimately, power isn't just about brute force.
No, it's about legitimacy, about having the support of the people.
And when people are just struggling to survive, that support can vanish pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah, it's fickle.
So we've got this perfect storm: environmental stress, political instability, and social unrest. It's a bleak picture, isn't it? Cities abandoned, swallowed by the jungle.
It's a stark reminder of how interconnected everything is, the environment, society, politics. But, the Maya story isn't just about collapse.
Well, there's more.
It's also about resilience. While cities in the south, like Tikal, they succumbed to these pressures. Maya civilization, it persisted in other regions, especially along the coast.
So it wasn't a total wipeout. There were survivors who managed to adapt and carry on the Maya traditions.
Exactly. Cities like Tulum and Chichen Itza, they show remarkable resilience. They weathered the storm, so to speak.
Right. So how did they do it?
Well, maybe they relied on different agricultural techniques or established new trade networks. We can't be sure. But it's fascinating to think about the cultural exchange that must have happened.
You're talking about those refugees fleeing the collapsing cities in the south.
Yeah, where did they go? It's highly likely that many of them found refuge in these coastal cities. So imagine the blending of cultures and ideas that would have happened. We can actually see it reflected in the architecture of Chichen Itza. It combines classic Maya elements with influences from the Toltec civilization.
So amidst the tragedy of collapse, we also see this spark of human resilience, this ability to adapt, to innovate, to preserve culture, even in the face of these enormous challenges. It makes you wonder, could they have done more? Could they have seen the warning signs and changed course?
It's impossible to know for sure, but their story, it serves as a powerful lesson for us today. It reminds us that no civilization, no matter how advanced or powerful, is immune to the consequences of environmental degradation and social upheaval.
And that's where the real connection to our own time comes in. We're facing similar challenges: climate change, resource depletion, political instability. The Maya collapse isn't just some ancient mystery. It's a reflection of our own vulnerabilities. It really makes you think, what choices could we make today, to create a more sustainable and resilient future?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The Maya collapse. It reminds us that we're not just passive bystanders in history. We have the power to shape our future by the decisions we make today.
And I guess it starts with recognizing those connections you talked about, how our environment, our societies, and our choices are all linked.
Exactly. The Maya, they were incredibly skilled engineers, mathematicians. They developed these intricate calendars, understood astronomy, built these amazing cities. But their knowledge and sophistication, it wasn't enough to overcome those combined pressures of environmental degradation and social unrest.
It's a pretty sobering thought, but we have the benefit of hindsight. We have even more knowledge, technology, and understanding of these complex systems.
So the key is whether we choose to use that knowledge wisely.
Right. Will we learn from the mistakes of the past or just repeat them on a grander scale?
Hopefully not.
So what does Paul Cooper say about all this? What are his big takeaways from studying the Maya and other collapsed civilizations?
He emphasizes the importance of long-term thinking, recognizing that our choices today, they have ripple effects far into the future.
Yeah.
He also talks about the need for humility, acknowledging that we don't have all the answers and that we need to be open to learning from both our successes and our failures.
He seems to really highlight the importance of social cohesion, too, like working together to address these challenges instead of falling into division and conflict.
Absolutely. One of the most striking things about the Maya collapse is how quickly things unraveled once those social and political structures started to crumble. It really underscores the importance of strong institutions, trust in leadership, and a shared sense of purpose, especially when navigating tough times.
So it's not just about technology or innovation, it's about how we function as a society,
Right.
how we make decisions, and how we respond to challenges as a collective.
Precisely. And maybe that's the most important lesson the Maya can teach us, that the fate of civilizations, it doesn't just rest on environmental factors, but also on the choices that we make both individually and collectively about how we interact with each other and with the world around us.
It's a powerful message and one that really resonates with what's happening in the world today. If you're intrigued by the Maya collapse and what it means for our own time, I highly recommend checking out Paul Cooper's work, his podcast, and his book, They go deep into these topics with incredible depth and insight.
Couldn't agree more. It's a good reminder that history isn't just about dates and events, it's about understanding the human story, the choices we've made, and the consequences that followed. And by understanding the past, well, hopefully we can make more informed choices for the future.
Maybe even avoid making some of those same mistakes. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Maya collapse, be sure to subscribe to the show for more explorations of history, science, and culture. And don't forget to check out our website for more resources and links to Paul Cooper's work. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.